He's in the student newspaper. You can go in the digital access to the Hilltop, the student newspaper, Howard University. Anybody can get it. If you go on Howard's website, go to the library system and look for the digital version of the Hilltop. You got him in there arguing with Howard students back in the 70s and 80s. They're saying Chancellor Williams, these are Muslim students. They mad at Chancellor Williams because Chancellor Williams said the Arabs enslaved us too. And so the black kids who are Muslims jump on Chancellor Williams. They don't know enough to know Chancellor Williams trying to shake y'all away. And Chancellor Williams is like, fine. He fires back. He said, you think I'm going to let you kids intimidate me because y'all just found out about Assalamu alaikum? Let me be very clear about who these people, who you are bowing down to. I'm saying I have to say that. That's the rejected strain. Armah in this book is like, it's not enough for me to point to the future and the present. As an elder, I'm going to take on my age mates too. Because we got a problem with this. And it made me think, I think it makes us all think of how important it is to lift up the victories. To lift up, like you just did, Kat, this sister, the mayor in Hollywood, South Carolina. Because, you know, I looked her up. I guess she was in the State House before that. What's that? She was in her 40s. You spent some time with her. She's in her 40s. I'm wondering if she was in the State House.
Yes.
Was she there when they took the Confederate flag down?
Was she there when they took the Confederate flag down?
Murray. Because she looks like she's in her 40s. She might be in her late 40s.
Yeah. Actually, I think she's about 44 or 45 years old.
Okay, mid-40s. The reason I wonder that because when those Africans in South Carolina, and this is on C-SPAN if anybody wants to watch it, when Nikki Haley gives herself credit, I took down the Confederate. You ain't do nothing. That South Carolina legislators stayed up all night one day arguing about taking that flag down. And those Africans that came to the well of the South Carolina State House, all the elected representatives, and told why this flag got to come down, it was a beautiful moment of African people in the wake of that slaughter at Mother Emanuel. And I'm wondering if she was one of them. But I see now these white boys trying to challenge her, saying that she used the challenge Facebook page because her brother was running for the State House. Yeah. We can win. And we don't have to have everybody with us. We just have to stay the course. And as Chancellor Williams said, which inspired Ayi Kwei Armah in part, to follow the migrations, it doesn't start on this side of the water. And I'm glad you expanded it to the west coast of Africa, because now they're trying to do that too. Oh, we can start. No, keep going. No, I want to keep going. We know y'all ain't going to let us stop with a 1619 history. So we got to go into the Atlantic and stand up in the dungeon and say it starts here. Yeah, you can't start in the dungeon. Keep going. No, we can't keep going. We'll keep going. So I'm wondering what you all think about the metaphor in the book of these translators who have these jobs, who may want to be free, who may not want to be free, but are torn because they can't see even as much as Nefert and Jehudi and them can see, and Sally eventually sees, which we can build some companions, because it seems like that group of translators is a metaphor for so many of us. You know what I'm saying? Who, when we see it, it's like, okay, did we win? Okay, I'll come out now. But you're not going to fight. Seems to me that's part of what's going on in South Africa right now with this election. It's like some of these people think we could get free. I don't know though, but what got about it?
Want to go first, Sister Adams? She's frozen. Okay, I'll go first. With regards to the metaphor, I think it's a metaphor for the professional class. How do you interpret your role, your profession, to your teacher? What do you teach? Do you just teach the curriculum? Just tick the box. I've done my job. Go home. Bye. See ya. The doctor. Do you look after the elderly amongst your community? Do you do, as a lawyer, are you willing to go the extra mile to listen? Not hear, but just listen to what is being said before you. Someone comes to you with a case. You're already doing a mental calculation of how much hours you can bill as opposed to the case before you.
My God.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
You're a janitor. Well, I've clocked up now. I'm going home. But yet, there are people who still waiting on the fact that, okay, you're working in a hospital and you know what germs do so essentially what you are being asked to do now is interpret your work in relation to your community. You're a shopkeeper. Someone comes in and you can tell that they're struggling. You know, there you go. You want to have that extra? Because the bottom line is not going to impact you. It's not. I mean, only recently, there's a bill going through Parliament that food prepared by restaurants should not be chucked at the end of the day or should be given to the homeless.
This is in the UK?
In the UK, I mean, it's still being talked about. But in France, it's already the law that you cannot chuck food away. You have to take it to the homeless shelter. So again, we live in the West. Fantastic. We live in the West. When I came to DC last year, I saw one picture, the year before actually. And I saw one picture that when I was reading the Resolutionaries and I saw what he was talking about with regards to the absurdity of the entire affair. Any society that lets a pregnant woman be homeless, walking the streets, half naked, is not worthy of the word society. And I saw that in DC. There was this lady, I went in the CVX, and there was this lady just walking across the street. And I was telling the person next to me, what is this? I said, look, she's homeless. Like, and? Can't you see she's pregnant? I mean, even in the UK, yes, same capitalist ideal and, a pregnant woman would not be allowed to be walking homeless on the streets. But it's like, all rules, all bets are off. Do whatever. Like, this is not normal. So, in the Resolutionaries, Ayi Kwei Armah is asking us to look around us to see what is it about our society that we, as individuals, as a collective, as a group of companions, can resolve that this is what we'll focus our attention on. And you don't have to do everything. Just pick one. If it's going to sit with the elderlies and talking to them in the course of the day, if that's all you can do, that's... Because, again, in the Resolutionaries, we don't put our elderly in old people's home.
Come on.
You find a new role for them. What's the new role? They talk to the young ones. They pass wisdom on. When the mother came in, what did Resi do? Immediately, sat next to the woman and was listening to everything she was saying. And that is how I grew up.
Yes. The
notion that your granny, the bastion of knowledge, and as they say in the African circles, when an older head goes, it's as if a library has burnt, because you're never going to get those nuggets again. So we can resolve to say, okay, here are people who are going to sit with the elderly and let them tell their stories to you. And in those stories you can use in your own life. So, Sister Aya.
In reading through this, he definitely grapples with this issue of who is he referring to? How do we do this work? I see Insight News says, how do we learn to be our authentic selves with ourselves and with the world? First, how do we discover and teach ourselves who our authentic selves are? And I'm going to read a portion of what Ayi Kwei Armah says that there's so many portions that could answer that question, but that I hope begins to address that. One of my concerns in reading the book, though, was, and I realized that he couldn't do everything in this book, and he did cover a lot of ground in this book. I mean, he even covers, what would we call it, female castration or genital mutilation, whatever terminology you want to use. He covers a lot in this book.
Yes, he did.
But I wonder in focusing on the translators, which obviously is who he is, he understands this work, and even the other examples that he gave, whether they're not hints of the talented 10th in this, as in the issues of Africa are going to be resolved by the quote-unquote intellectuals, and not as much conversation about all the other people, the masses, so to speak. But coming back to the elites and the intellectuals and so on, if I go on page 452, he says, we're talking of the way we make a living, Benga said, but whose are we? African intellectuals, too general, he said. You think we should narrow things down if we intend to act on our conclusions? So we focus on ourselves as translator interpreters, language people. That's more practical. We agreed before that it would be impractical to cut off our sources of income while figuring out how best to live and work. So this is like the privileged folk talking about, hey, you know, I want to keep my standard of living and stuff, but we want to be free. And so that in this book, I don't see a lot of conversation with the brother who, you know, his mother is selling what little she has for him to get on one of these boats where he's already paid an imam or maraba to pray over them. And then everybody goes and dies anyway, except him and maybe one other two people. But how everybody is capitalizing on the despair and the hopelessness of other people. You know, this man wanting to marry Rama, but it's like, hey, yeah, you want to marry, but you got resources. How you going to take care of our daughter? Okay, well, I'll go over to Europe, because everyone who makes it goes to Europe or America first and then comes back, is what he says. Okay, you got to read the book. Okay, so he goes on to say, what we didn't ask was whether there was only one way for people like us to make a living the way we're doing now. Is there a different way, I asked? If we want to get serious, Judy said, we'll find one or make one. Could you expand on that, Sally asked. It's quite clear we each have to make a living. The way we do it is by servicing the status quo. We're doing system maintenance for a system we have no interest in maintaining. For a system we want to replace with something better, an African system. We keep talking about African. What does African mean? What does it mean to be an African? Okay, yet to be designed. While designing the new, we serve the old. Okay. The ideal situation would be to be able to make a living while servicing our vision.
Right.
And I would say that for me, that's what keeps me going. I go and I practice law right now so I can pay people in Okobo, and we can fund the school, and we can do some other things, and we can get land and have a farm, and people be able to live and work. I mean, that's it. And so, you know, and when you do this work, you got to find companions, because as someone who is married and has children, it's like, wait a second, family needs resources. Where your salary? Where you made money? Where did it go? It's gone. You know, it's like, okay, but anyway, that's a whole other conversation for another.
The conversation.
Where would the funding come from, Sally asked. This beautiful sister Sally, the straightforward way you articulate important questions, Benga said. In Kemet, the style was called Ma'at. Coming back to what Kathy said at the beginning. If we need to live in the, now listen to Judy. If we need to live in the style to which our education has accustomed us, Judy said, we'll have to continue making our living the same old way. And that's the trap that most of us are caught in, right?
Slap, yo.
But if we want to innovate, how does one fund a rupture if all income comes from the status quo? And then he goes on to answer some of the questions. I'm going to jump around a little bit. He says,
no spoilers.
If we want to do that work, it won't be enough for us to study our vision. Okay, no, let me back up. Let me back up. I shouldn't have jumped. But if we want to innovate, how does one find a rupture if all income comes from the status quo? Have we concluded that all income comes from the existing system? Do you see any other source? We're looking, said Sally. Look at our ideals, Benga said. We're looking, said Sally, affecting an intense stare. They're useless unless we communicate them. They'll become powerfully useful when a critical portion of our society recognizes them as our best possessions and gets ready to practice them. Talking about our ideals. So we come back to this Africana methodology that Dr. Carr is teaching us and how we implement that, right? Our ideals become powerfully useful when we study them and we get ready to practice them. That won't happen unless the vision gets articulated clearly enough to reach that critical portion. And that's one of the reasons I'm grateful for Nubia. It's not everything that I personally would want it to be, but it is creating this space where we can have these conversations. And many of you who are listening to this are in Nubia, and if you aren't, you want to get on that. Okay, and of course, you want to stay connected here at Adesoji Speaks Knowledge, so please hit that like button and subscribe as well. Okay, then he goes on to say, if we want to do that work, it won't be enough for us to study our vision. We'll have to study it deeply enough to understand it thoroughly. And this is the work. This is the quiet. This is not the rah-rah. This is not the looking cute. This is not the Nubians, y'all forever be wanting to buy a t-shirt with a saying. Nah, it's going to have to go deeper than that. I know I'm being shady. I'm